Hi folks, Marty here again today, and it's that time of year. I really love this time of year. You're in your autumn, kind of approaching winter, and this is going to be a wee snow scene with some urban kind of colours in it. That's my favourite. I just love those colours in the trees with the snow. So if you have a look at this wee picture here that I've got for you, if you can do a wee screen grab of that, that would be great if you want to paint along with me. So it's going to be a couple of colours, not too many, like our last one, probably about 3 colours, just your primaries, your yellow, red and blue. And if you have any white, that would be great because that'll be useful for the snow, of course. And so what we're going to do is we're going to just quickly mix up some of the paints, getting ready to go. This is going to be a bit of a fast and loose one. Everything around this little farmhouse, every little thing around this farmhouse is going to be kind of loose, and the only thing that's going to be tight is the farmhouse itself. So I'm just cleaning the palette, getting it ready for clean colours. Okay, so first up, we're going to do the sky. So grab some of your cobalt blue there. So I want you to do that, and I want you just to throw in a wee touch of your red, but just a wee touch because this can be quite strong. And then with your wee scrap piece of paper beside you, just give it a wee tester there. So that red, that'll take it towards a sort of like a kind of bluey grey. Obviously more blue in the mix there. Okay, so, and then what you do in another well, you mix that same colour, but this time a little bit more red. And what that does, that takes it more into the grey. So these are going to be kind of snow-laden clouds. All right, so the second colour, that'll be a bit like that. Needs to be a wee bit stronger, so I'm just going to go into my paints again and just get the right combination there. So I'll be just playing around with it, you know. If you can do this just before you start committing paint to paper, it makes it a lot easier for you. Okay, so it's going to be a sort of like a partial kind of wet into wet on dry kind of sky. What I mean by that is I'm not wetting the whole page. I'm just kind of using my wee spray here, and I'm just hitting and missing here and there. Okay, and then I'm into my blue now, the first colour we made up, and we'll just drop that in the top here like that. And if it's too weak, just quickly go into your paints and throw a wee bit more colour in there. And then we're going to paint around the clouds. It's kind of like negative space, if you like. And then I'm going to go into my grey colour, which was a stronger mix of the blue and the red. And then we're just going to drop that in there quickly. Okay, so at this stage, it probably looks like a bit of a dog's dinner, but what we'll do is we'll just start to go in now, and you either go in with a damp brush or else go in with a tissue and start to lift wee bits off here and there, and And then if you want to use your wee spray again. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to go into my yellowy colour. A wee bit of red in it. So again, it makes it a bit kind of, like a bit of an orangey colour. And what I'm going to do is just throw it in there where the clouds are. And then you're just kind of looking at your clouds and trying to imagine realistic clouds and then the light hitting the top and then a bit of shadow beneath them, you know. And then pull out a wee bit more of the white there. It's as if there's sun high up in the sky. Might throw another wee touch of blue in there. Just here and there. Okay, so and then this could maybe be some clouds in the distance there. So I'm just going to scrubbing out with my brush here a wee bit. What I often find is in the studio, it can be a bit warm. And it dries the paper really quick. So I'm going to grab a wee tissue here and just soften it up a wee smidge. Okay, that's looking not too bad. So the next stage of the game is we're going to start dropping in our trees down here. And then that's going to be, you're wanting this to be sort of very dark in mixture. So that's go into your blue first, because that's going to be your darkest. And then go into your red. Okay, so what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to get that wee spritzer again. So I want these trees to be wet into wet. I want them to bleed in with the sky. See how it just pushes the water out of the way there. And then a lot of wee bit more red into that. And you're just kind of, you're not so much sort of painting it on, but you're just kind of dabbing it on and letting the pigment run from the brush into that water. And then you get that lovely spread out effect there. And then I'm going to go in a wee bit more red now. Just drop a couple of wee bits in here and there. You want to break that up. You don't want it to be one big consistent band of dark color, okay? And what I'll do is I'll put some like a purpley kind of mix in here. So I'm sure you all remember how to make purple. Just take your blue and a bit of red there. Now what we'll do is we'll just pull that across here like that. Okay, so we're getting a lot of pulling here. So we're not going to panic. We're just going to take the excess water off our brush by using a tissue and then just gently mopping that up. Remember, you're not painting it, you're just mopping it. You're just touching it with your brush here and there. Okay. Maybe just another wee hint of that here and there just to kind of give the impression that there's trees and so on here. And don't forget, folks, if you're getting anything out of these videos and enjoying them, do us a big favour, would you? And just subscribe to the channel, because I suppose that's one of those things, isn't it? You know, the more people I know that are interested in these little tutorials and little exercises, the more encouraged I'll be to put them up. But if I think I'm only doing this for a handful of people, you know, it's it wouldn't be worthwhile, really, would it? But always appreciative of those who leave a wee comment, even if it's just to say, how you doing? Great job. Thanks for putting these up. Okay, so that's one layer of trees here. So what I want to do now, I want to mix up a slightly darker mix now. So again, it's your three primaries, your blue, your red, and your yellow. So you want a more creamy kind of texture. When you're learning to paint, it's always the hardest part. It's kind of trying to learn how thick to put paint on. Just trying to watch that wee chimney there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring that round. Just going to cut round that chimney there like that, if I can. And then just start to just dab it on like that. And then I'm going to leave a bit of white up here, as if there's a bit of field up there, you know. So I'm just cutting round that house. So it is a snow scene, so there will be snow lying on that roof there. Be honest, this brush, as great as it is for washes, it can be a bit clumpy when it comes to detail sort of stuff. All right, so I'm just going to scrape that down like that. Maybe put a wee bit more here and there. So what you want to do is you want to put it on enough paint so it's kind of like pooling at the bottom. So you get this kind of beading effect. And what that does, it preserves where you're painting, and so you don't get hard lines. Okay, so I'm just going to drag a few different colors in here and there. So I'm going to go into some red here with just a wee hint of yellow. And I want to just kind of drop that in here and there, just to give the impression that there's trees with leaves that have turned. And I'm going to cut down the front of that house there, over that little lean-to or canopy on the roof there. Okay. And then I'm going to pick up the bead down at the bottom here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is get a bit of a yellowy colour into this. As if there's some really lovely coppery yellow colours down here in the foreground. And then you see the way I'm just painting there? The brush is just tipping and dancing, and I'm just going to let them all run into each other there. Okay. What I might do is grab another brush here. So I want pretty thick stuff at this stage. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring it down around that little house bit here. Okay, so that house comes in here. So just through that porch area, you want to continue on that idea. And then we'll kind of finish that at the bottom there. So there's going to be bushes and trees and stuff here. So it's a nice way just to kind of ground that, if you know what I mean. Okay, excuse me. So we're going to mix up some greeny, kind of dark greeny. And we're just going to drop it in here and there. And then we'll just bring some up here. So basically, there's a wee fence here. We can come along and put the gate in a bit later. Okay, so I'm just going to lift some of that. It's pulling quite a bit at the bottom, so I'm just going to lift that out. Okay, I'm just going to make sure it's a wee bit smooth around that chimney. I'm going to bring some of that dark colour down here. Okay, so there's going to be bushes and hedges and whatnot here. And then if there's snow, it's been lying on the top of it. That's great because you can get a nice transition there. Okay, so what I'm going to do, just to keep control of the thing, I'm going to dry this off quickly. So I forgot to mention that I cordoned this off here. I didn't really want to do a big, well, it's not big, but I didn't want to do a quarter imperial. I wanted something to be smaller. And then rather than having cutting this off, I just put a drop of tape down. So I can do that for my testers, which is great. And at the end, when I take this all off, I can cut it. Okay. So that's not too bad looking. And the darker this is, the better it's going to be when it comes to working on the snow, which you'll see later on. Okay, so at this stage, what I want to do is I want to do sort of like kind of reddy bushes in here. So just go into your red, a wee drop of yellow. And if it looks too vibrant, you can always tone it down with a bit of blue. And then use your wee scraper here just to test it out, make sure you're happy with it. I must say it's a bit of a discipline having to paint with just 3 colours. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're just going to put a wee drop of clean water on our brush, and then we're just going to kind of come up to the edges like this. Just very quickly throw that on there. And then go into your colour. And then that should give us a nice kind of soft edge there. And then you can have it just that white just showing there. And that'll look like it's been snow has just landed on the top there. Okay, and I just added a wee bit of blue in there just to darken that down. And then this is going to be more towards the bottom end of it here. So as rough as you can paint that, that'll be the job. And then I'm going in with the strongest mix that I can possibly do there. I'm just hitting it wee bits here and there. And then coming up to the top now and again and just kind of helping to break that up a wee bit. Now I'm going to follow this on down here. What I should have done is some clean water and then just touch the top of those hedges. Yeah, we'll try that again. There we go. So we'll kind of soften it up for us. Okay, so we've got a bit of a gate here. And then I'm just slapping that on like that. When I say slapping it on, I mean I'm just dragging the brush sideways and just wee flicks here and all. It just helps to break it up a bit, make it look a bit more natural. And then I'm going on with that darkest colour that I made up. And then I'm going to drop that in here and there. And then in here with that dark colour as well, just a couple of wee hits here and there. And then I'm going to grab a wee small brush at the minute. So what I want to do is I want to put those fences and stuff in, okay? So again, a good strong mix here. Get your blue, wee bit of red, wee bit of yellow, just to neutralize it. And then I'm going to drop them in just like this here. It's a wee bit wonky, but sure, it's great. Makes it look a bit more natural. And then over here, one there. And I'm just looking at this before it dries, and if there's any wee bits I need to pop in there, I can do that now. Okay, so that's looking not too bad. So what we're going to do now is, before we get into this here, the farmhouse bit, what we'll do is we'll get, well, we could either go into that or we could finish this back area up a bit more. We could put little trees in, stuff like that, and build it up, and then build the whole picture up. So is it the last thing we're working on is the house? What do you reckon? Shall we? Yeah, okay. We'll do the wee trees and stuff. So again, you're just mixing up your blue, red, and yellow here for a good, strong, thick, creamy mix. And then just test it out with your wee scrap bit on the side there. And then what we're going to do is we're going to just drag out some trees and stuff. And then we'll stick one maybe right here. What we'll do later on, if I remember, is come back and put a wee bit of snow on those. We'll put a few in here, but not yet, because I want to do a wee bit of work in here later on. We'll pop one in here. And just remember, kind of hold your hand like that when you're painting, and then just flick it. Well, I don't mean flick it, I mean just kind of lightly drag it. Okay, I think what we'll do now, we'll work on the fields here. Um, it's kind of remembering that snow isn't always white. It's always got a bit of a reflection of sky or whatever's around it. So what we're going to do is we're going to mix up a bit of a grey colour, grey blue. So a bit of cobalt, just a wee hint of that red, not too much of it. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go into this corner here, do with a wee bit more. So this corner is going to be kind of in shadow. So we're going to take our brush up and then drag it like that. And then just bring it down onto the top of those hedges there. Okay, so we don't want any hard edges. So what we're going to do is go in with a bit of clean water and just touch the edge out like that. It'll give the impression that they're kind of rolling hills. You can have the odd hard line here and there, you know. Something like that. And then we're going to drag it down this side here. So it's all about a hit and miss, you know. We'll throw a wee bit of blue in here and there. And then what we're going to do is try and paint around those sheep. We don't want to paint over them because we want to keep them as white as we can for when we start to paint them later on a bit. And then we'll get a bit of clean water in here. Just run that down. Okay, I think we'll put a bit more of our purpley mix down in that foreground. Remember, just keep it light. Don't go too dark at this stage, you know. And we'll just angle it. We'll angle the shape of that downward just to make it look like it's a bit of a hill there. And then we'll come up here. We'll get in close to those hedges there. Just to make it look like there's a bit of shadow being cast there. And then we'll maybe put a wee bit more in here. A wee bit round there. So it was our wee purple mix there we made up. Okay, so we're getting there. We're starting to build it up. Remember, this is all just an undercoat, believe it or not. When we start to get to the final stages of this, that's where it really gets cooking. Okay, so you're probably looking at your water, and your water is probably looking like this right now, okay? So what you want to do is, because you're doing a snow scene and you want to keep everything fresh and light, you probably want to change your water at this stage. We'll leave this for now. We might decide to do a wee bit later on, who knows? But I think what we'll do now is we'll turn our attention to the house. You want a smaller brush, something like that there. It looks like a number 6 or something like that. And it's one of these things, you don't want the house to be too dark, but you want it to be dark enough for the snow when we put that on. Okay, so you're mixing up a brownie color. And remember, when you're mixing up your own browns, what you want to do is go into your yellow first, okay? And then add a bit of blue. Okay, that turns it green. And then when you start adding in your red, it starts to take it towards the brown. Okay, so the only thing that's left to do then is look at how dark you want this to be or how cold you want this to be. So you just vary it accordingly. You could do a whole lesson on making up browns, but I know you can buy browns easy enough, and that's grand. But sometimes it's good to know how to make your own. I think it gives you a better appreciation of what goes into making a brown. And if you have a pre-mixed brown already, it's never going to be the exact shade that you're looking for. You're always going to have to doctor it somehow, either by adding a bit of the blue in, or a bit of the yellow, or a bit of the red, all depending on how warm or cold, how dark, all those factors. That's why I'm saying it is good to know how to make your own. Because then you can do that then on the fly if you like. Just leave a wee bit of white on the top of that there, that bush there. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a bit of a stronger colour in there now. And that's just more blue, more red, just more of the pigment really. And I'm going to drop that just around the bottom here like that. And maybe a wee touch here and there, just coming down here. What I'm doing is I'm really framing the house. Right, so what you can do is now go in with a damp brush and just touch wee bits here and there, lift wee bits out. If it's pooling, you can lift that out as well. Okay. Okay, so we're back into that brown again. And what we're going to do is add a wee bit more blue to it. We want to be a bit cooler this time because we're going to paint the front of that taller one here. And that's what I love about these snow scenes, because just the snow on the roof, that creates a natural kind of border. So this is coming down the front of that. And then don't forget to pick it up underneath here as well. Okay, so now we're into the front of the house here, or the front of the smaller part of the house, should I say. So what we can decide to do here is, if we want to have a light that's shining out here, it's kind of that time of the night, isn't it? It's kind of getting a bit darker and you've got the light on. So what we'll do is we'll put a bit of our yellow in here. And we'll let that kind of come down here onto the deck here, onto the decking. And then because that's part of the same room here, what we'll do is we'll put a bit of light here as well. And then we'll go around this and paint the frame in darker in a second. And then there's a wee bit of that light. It's just hitting the top of that snow that's on the bushes there. Okay, so what we want to do now is go in with a nice dark colour here, just around that window with the light coming out of it. All right, so and then we'll put a bit of shadow on right underneath that lean-to. And then with a good strong mix, we'll just go in here. That's the decking. And then we'll just bring it on down a wee bit here. And what we can do is over at this house here, we could drop in a few windows. There's not much to it really, is there, when you think of it? It's when you start breaking the painting down, you know, and then before you know it, you're approaching the final stages. So I'm going to leave a wee bit of white on top of that windowsill there, just to give the impression that snow is just lying on it. And then this is the wooden part of the window. Bring that down like that. And what we can do is I think we can just knock that all in there. And then leave a wee bit of snow there on that sill. Okay, these posts are coming down here, but because it's so dark behind there, it's hard to see. But sometimes if the snow's kind of blowing, and it would actually hit the front of that. Okay, so that's starting to get there, starting to come along. And then down here a wee bit, I don't mind leaving a wee bit of white there just to indicate that there's snow there, and this porch area is coming on down a bit like that. And then what we're going to do with our brownie colour, we're going to paint the actual chimney part in. So again, it's all combinations of your primaries here. All right, so let's see. Leave a wee bit of white there at the top. And then this is the side of the chimney. What we might have to do is make this part here, this facing this, darker. So I kind of imagine that maybe the light's coming from this direction here. So anything at that side or anything hitting here is going to be in light, and anything at the opposite end of it is going to be in shadow. So what we're going to do now is we're going to make up a bit of a bluey purple colour. And then we'll just drop it on here. So this kind of bit is in shadow, but we'll keep the top bit white to indicate snow there. And we'll just drop that down like that. I forgot we should have done that chimney while we were at it, but sometimes the pencil marks are so light. I'm hoping you can see the pencil stuff okay when I'm actually doing this here. If not, just let me know. For these videos, I try to be a wee bit heavier handed with the pencil line so you can actually see it, but if this was a commission, I try to keep the pencil as light as I can. All right, so I don't know if that looks like snow to you or not there. But when snow's in shadow, that's kind of how it would look there. So what we're going to do now is we're going to drop some down here on this, but remember what was said about the direction of light. This, it could be that the moon's out. Okay, so that might pass for shadow there. Okay, what I want to do is go in and paint that chimney there. Try and remember to leave a wee bit of white at the top. It's not easy, but if you can, that's great. And you know, no big issue if you forget, because we can always do it with gouache. Gouache. Okay, so what I'm going to do here, I'm going to mix up my shadow color. And if you've been watching my previous videos, you'll remember it's always cobalt blue, a wee touch of red. If that looks too purpley, you can add a wee bit of yellow to it, just to kind of neutralize it a wee bit. And you want to keep this not too strong. All right, so what we're going to do is we're just going to start dropping it in. So if this bit was in shadow with the moonlight coming down there, it would be like that probably. And then maybe a wee bit along here. And then a wee bit just the other side of that chimney there. And maybe just a wee bit here. Okay, so what we want to do now is turn attention to these sheep here, okay? Difficulty with sheep and snow is in your head, you think that sheep are white and you think snow's white. So they would basically cancel each other out. But snow's not always white and sheep aren't always white either. It's almost like a kind of creamy kind of color. And it's hard to mix up a creamy color with those three primaries. That's where you would need to introduce a little bit of your gouache. So what you do is you mix up a very light brown color and then you add in a wee bit of that gouache there. you want this to look a bit on the dirty side, okay? So let's see how this does. All right, that's not too bad. So that's a brown. That's a brown with a wee bit of gouache in there. And then there's one that's got away. Okay, so they probably don't look like it's sheep at this bit, but what we're going to do is sheep are always up to their necks in dirt. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a wee bit of um, dirty browny color just underneath, and we're going to try and blend that in with the legs. Obviously, you know they're standing in snow, so don't be tempted to go right down and do their feet. Okay, let me see how this goes. Okay, so what we might need to do is dry that off a wee bit first. But what we can do is see with your brush, if you kind of lift a wee bit off like that, and what that makes it look like as if the light's hitting the top of the shape. Okay, and now we'll go into our darker brown color, and we'll just kind of bring it under like this here, and then we'll start to bring the legs down. I haven't made it easy for myself in that these are quite small, but you know, it is really just trying to give it the impression. You don't want your paintings to be too obvious. And then that's the back side of that one. He's facing away from us. And then we'll drag a bit under here. Okay, what I want you to do now is, if that's too hard, just get a wee brush. Just soften that dark edge here. Painting sheep, that's a lesson in its own there. Um, and if you're interested in that kind of thing, I do have one where the whole painting is sheep in the snow. So at some stage, be sure to check that out. Okay, so now we're going to do the heads. So I mixed up a nice strong colour, my blue. And this one's looking round. He doesn't trust anyone behind him. Wise sheep. Okay, and now I'm just going to bring those legs down a wee bit more because okay, so what we want to do now is we don't want these sheep floating in the air. So we need to ground them somehow. And the best way to do that is just with our shadow colour, which is blue, touch of red, a wee bit of yellow just to neutralise it. And just use your wee scrap just to test these out. Make sure it's not too dark or too light, you know. All right, so light's coming from this direction. So you see, we'll just kind of, we'll not go overboard here with this. We'll just kind of, There you go. That's our wee sheep. So I'm just basically looking at our painting again and making sure that I've covered everything I want to do. What I think I'll do is I'll drag a bit of brown stuff in here and there to make it look like, the farmer's been there earlier and the cattle's been led in and out. So use your scrap bit just to kind of get a practice run at it, or take off any excess, and then you can just drag it along like that. So I'm just dragging that along here but there's not a lot of texture in this paper. It's quite flat actually. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just go into my brownie color. When I say brownie, I mean or the one that we made up with the blue, red, and a bit of yellow. And what we're going to do is we're going to put in a couple of wee posts and so on here and there. And there might be some wee posts along this fence here and there. And then what we're going to do is drag a wee bit of shadow colour there. We're not far off getting to the good stuff, folks. You're doing great hanging in there. I know it's not always easy to find the time to sit and watch a whole video this length, but it's a case of just, getting the old kettle on, getting a coffee or a tea or whatever, and just sit and try and just chill for a wee hour. So just kind of let the world go by for a wee bit. Okay, I think we're about there. What I'm going to do is get a wee fine brush. And I'm going to start just putting wee bits of snow here and there. So I'm using a tube of gouache, all right, and a wee fine spotter brush. Okay, and I'm just going to just go along here and there, just anywhere where snow is going together. A wee bit along the top there. And we can also put a wee bit on the top of that roof there. And then any bits that need fixed up, if there's something that you forgot to leave white, This is your chance to fix all that now. And then a wee bit along the porch here. And then we'll put some wee bits here and there on the hedge. And then what we'll do is, earlier on it says we'll put some on the trees. Okay, trying to get a brush that's fine enough, which is not always easy. I know there's a lot of folks that would use those pens and stuff for this kind of thing, you know. That's all fine, as long as it looks great. So you're kind of just thinking of parts in the tree where the snow would gather. And then pull out a few wee white branches here and there. And then put some down this bush here. Okay, folks, I think that's us ready for, you know what? But before we do, what about a few wee birds? Let's see. So we're looking for wee bits of paint drops here and there. So what you want to do now is you want to get a palette, but a clean one, not one like this here. Give it a good clean, and this is going to be your gouache palette. You don't want to get gouache mixed in with all your good paints, because it's a different type of paint. Okay, and keep it separate. That will be the best way to kind of work this. So I'm just giving this wee palette a clean out here. It's always good to keep a few of these spare for this kind of thing. If you're doing big washes, or if your palette's not big enough. And okay, that's it all clean. Okay, just to show you that it is clean-ish. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to just get some of my gouache, empty out a wee blob like that. And then what we're going to do is try to get the consistency of this right. That is the key. Sometimes you're better just using a wee spray, just something like that there. And you know, if you add too much water, you'll end up starting again. Okay, so what you want is a hard brush or a toothbrush. If you have an old toothbrush or something, that'll work great. So it's trying to get the consistency. You want this to be quite thick, but not too thick that you can't do anything with it. And you don't want it too runny, that's just all over the show. Okay, now this is messy, so just watch where you're spraying this. And then have a wee practice here and there. Okay, here we go. So what I want you to do is just get a wee brush and then just don't go overboard with this. There's a tendency to, there's a tendency to find techniques that that work really well, but there's also the tendency to go overboard with it, okay? So what you're doing is you're aiming for all those dark bits of your painting, because you're not going to see this against any of the white bits. All right. And it really, it takes you to do this a few times, a few different paints. It basically takes you to run a few paintings, to break a few eggs, so to speak, before you actually start to get something that works for you. And there's things that you'd have done earlier on, and this kind of just bypasses them. Like we painted white in the trees, but you can't even see them now anyway. So this is what I'm saying. When I talked about this being an undercoat, I really meant that. You see it as an undercoat. Okay, and then a couple of wee splatters here and there. It's a good way to, if there's something you don't like about your painting and you want to pull it back, you can use this just to okay. I think we're at that stage where we need to kind of pull back a wee bit here. A couple of wee dark drops from earlier on there. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. What I want to do now is I want to get a wee signature on here. Okay, I'm just going to, any bits of unsightly pencil marks, I'm just going to get rid of those. Pencil can be great. It can add something to your work, but sometimes it just takes something away from it, if it's adding to it, keep it in. If it's not, take it out. Keep it all nice and clean and fresh looking. Okay, folks, here we go. The big reveal, the thing that you've all been waiting for. I just love taking this bit here off. Always remember to pull your tape out the way, okay, away from the picture. There's been many a good painting that's been ruined by dragging the paper all over the place. Remember one time basically giving that advice and I got distracted and I ended up ruining the picture. So I'm just going to stick a couple of wee bits up here just to hold that on so you can see it. Okay, so what you could do is just chop this bit off here, just leave it the same margin around it, just to keep it all nice. But there you go, folks. There's our wee winter's painting, and you could print that. If you've done something like that on your computer, you could print it out and make a wee Christmas card out of that and send it to all your loved ones, and there you go. So folks, thank you for staying to the end. Thank you for those who stuck with me through this little painting exercise. But so have a go at that yourself and see how you get on with it. And love to hear from you in the comments. So for now, take it easy and I'll see you soon.